Welcome to the Power of Music podcast. Brought to you by JM International. Get ready to explore conversations with those making a difference through music.
Hello and welcome to the Power of Music podcast, brought to you by JMI, Jeunesse Musicale International, the global network of NGOs that empowers young people through music across all boundaries. In this episode, we delve into the world of classical music research and new audiences in classical music. We discuss the need to care as much about the art itself as about audiences, the issue of only old faces on posters, and the magical ability of music to transport us. Additionally, we explore how to think differently about branding, the importance of celebrating and clapping for great music performances, and of course, the power of music. My name is Ricardo, and today I'm joined by Cecilie Nielsen, the culture consultant at RasmussenNordic. Cecilie helps cultural institutions such as orchestras, ensembles, and museums get practical tools, strategies, and data to become more attractive to more audiences across the world. She runs large-scale projects with many participants who want to learn more about the audiences they have and the ones they don't have, helping them figure out where they want to go and how to get there. As always, if you enjoy our content, don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate the podcast. We hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you share a bit about your journey into research and what you've been doing right now?
Yeah, I started as an archaeologist, actually. So I was out digging Viking houses and Stone Age buildings and all of these things, Stone Age like camps. But from there, I went into working at a museum. And I often had that feeling that because I was standing sometimes at the door and audiences would come in and they would spend 5 minutes and they would leave. So I could just immediate reaction of I go into a cultural space and I don't want it. It doesn't speak to me. I'm out of here. And we can't do that at a classical concert. But that was sort of my interest in saying, that can't be right. It just can't be right that when people enter in for the first time in a cultural space, that they turn around immediately. And when I've studied classical audiences, that's the one thing they say. I want to sit close to the exit because I'm a first-time audience. And if I want to leave, there's an escape. So from there in the museum world, I was more and more interested in what makes audiences leave, what makes them stop, but what makes them not come back. And then I got a job at RasmussenNordic, which studies audience behavior and then try to help cultural institutions, museums, classical orchestras use that knowledge to change things. And then a couple of years ago, we got really into classical music research because we joined with the Danish Association of Orchestras and Ensembles and Opera Institutions. And they are bleeding audiences. So in Denmark, we're down 30% over 10 years of audiences not buying tickets. And in Denmark, we can't do this as individual organizations. We need to do a collective lift. So we started this project where we were mapping audience journeys, and the exact thing that I was so interested in about the museum, from the get-go of an audience seeing your poster, do they walk away or do they stay? And then next time, if they go to the website and check out the program, do they walk away or do they stay? So that sort of led into this complete mapping of new audiences in classical music and interviewing people and sending them into the concert hall for the first time to experience this and test where does it go wrong. Because the whole objective is to help the Danish orchestras and ensembles and musicians learn how to minimize those stopping points and saying, how can we at least sweep away the walls that they face so that maybe they won't like it, because not all people like classical music or specific subgenres of classical music, but we can do more to help people cross those barriers because some of them are ridiculously small. It's like seeing an old face on a poster when you're a young person. So that we can change. That's easy to do if we just target audiences more specifically. Say this concert is for young people. Of course, there should be a young face on the poster. So that led into like building tools with the orchestras to say, what aren't we doing right now to stop these barriers and walls from getting into new audiences' faces? And that we've been working with for 3 years in Denmark, and it's been a journey because the first time I presented the data, a lot of people got uncomfortable. We had like 8 barriers. This is the things that are stopping audiences from going. Like, they can't choose a composer. They don't know how to listen to the music. And when we say that, most orchestra people are like, but they just need to listen. Just, sorry, but sit down and listen. And they still feel uncomfortable, the audiences. They still feel stupid. They need help. And if we're willing to give it to them, we might be one of the first orchestras who stop the bleed, to be honest.
I'm actually quite happily surprised, so to say, that they were commissioning this research, or they were excited about the research, which might just be because otherwise they might be slowly dying out. So it might be sort of a last resort. But then when they get the results finally, they're like, that's not what we want to know. What is that?
I think data feels like criticism, and criticism is never easy. We have a very strong sense in the classical music world of we are amazing and we are artful. We have this beautiful product. So why aren't people just buying it? It's beautiful. Why don't they buy it? And getting told that it's like little things, like the way you write your concert description. Stop using Italian words if you're not from Italy. Things like that is hard to hear. And I mean, some people even go into like denial and say, that's not what we see. And then I just ask if they sell all their tickets. And when they say no, then maybe it's time to listen to the audiences. And I think there's also like this feeling of, if we ask the audiences what we want, we are cheapening our own vision. And I think that's because we care so much about quality in classical music. It's like that is the highest point that we can reach. That's quality. But the way I see it, if we care about quality as much in the art as we care about the quality of audience experiences, it's just another kind of quality. And we can provide both. It's not mutually exclusive. But it does require you to listen and be open. And that's in other businesses. If Netflix lost 30% of their audiences, there would be like board meetings and someone's getting fired.
I think in all businesses, almost not exclusively, but there's not a lot of businesses that can have empty halls, but state that it's not about what they do. It's about the audience that doesn't understand it, or it's not ready for it. Or I don't know what kind of terms they use. In your experience with the research, because they say, it might cost us in terms of quality. But I saw your presentation yesterday, which was really great and very wonderful, and a great fit also for the Encore program, because it's all about innovation in classical music and new ways of thinking. I remember there wasn't actually so much about the music. It was much more about the journey there and how they arrive. And maybe you can say something about that.
Yeah, I think we had like a series of areas you can work with. So hosting has very little to do with what repertoire you have. I think we have data collection. Just get to know your audiences. Just know who you are selling to and what they want might affect your program, to be honest, or your programming. But firstly, it will just give you a way of deciding things. Like, should we have 10 concerts a year for this audience? Because we know that these 10 concerts will sell out if we make it to these kind of audiences. And those that don't sell, is it important that they sell? Can we have like a certain amount of niche concerts a year, and that's okay because we want to perform that? But how do we make smart decisions about that so that primarily we get the audiences we want? I think artistic programming, we call it the black box in RasmussenNordic because it's almost sacred in our area. And in all other businesses, the product is like the main thing. You cannot ignore product. And concert is our product, to be really businessy and boring and annoying, but it is. And many audiences, when they look at our shelves in the store, they don't understand the product. That's like the base of it. They look at it, they pass it between the cleaners, supplies, and the cheese and the bread, and they look at our product and they're like, I don't get it. I'm not sure what I'm getting if I pick up that product. And that's things where we can help with, like just creating expectations. I think a lot of the orchestras in Denmark aren't like necessarily changing the things that they want to play, but they are getting smarter about coupling them together in a way that audiences appreciate. So you can choose the same music, just be more like thematic about it. So this is sad music, or this is French music, and you're going to France today, and we're going to walk down the avenues and like we're in 1780, and there's not a French Revolution. That was a poor choice of era, but
It'd be exciting concert.
Yeah, it could be an exciting concert. But just repertoire, being more conscious of making decisions that are targeted towards different audiences. It's not like we're changing the music. So I think we have programming tools in there, because I think that we think should be talked about and is perhaps not as talked about in classical music is the criteria we use for each concert. What is it? Only the art? Or do we couple art with like very practical decisions and money decisions and audience needs? Because that can be done without ever compromising the art on stage. So I think you can start with the low-hanging fruit. You can just start by creating hosting that's better suited for different audiences. And please just consider what audience you're making it for. Because if you haven't decided that, you're not making it for anyone but yourself or your core audiences. So just more consciousness in terms of decision making. And that's an interesting thing in our industry, because organizational wise, we don't really, it's often very closed process. So maybe it's like one person deciding. And that's beautiful if you have someone who's really good at programming. But if people doesn't understand your product, and it's not necessarily marketing's fault. And I think sometimes marketing gets the most criticism in the organization. Like, why aren't you selling our ticket? And marketing can do a lot. There's a lot of barriers there too. But
yeah, could you maybe take us roughly through that sort of, let's call it a buyer's journey, because
yeah.
that's more a business term, and we need to think that. Can you take us roughly through the sort of the points of where the barriers are facing? And
yeah, we really looked at it like before the concert and during the concert and after the concert. So the journey begins with them knowing nothing about it. Maybe they like had a school concert once, and it was okay. It's not something that changed their lives in any way, but they kind of remember it. The way that I talk to audiences, the relationship they have with classical music before, when they're just curious about it, but never, it's nostalgia. Because, I mean, at least in my age, like 30s, 40s, it reminds them of childhood movies, because Disney was so good at using like the instruments that we recognize from orchestras to create these emotions. So they are like the Disney generation. They connect classical music to nostalgia, childhood feelings. And that's actually a very, very strong starting point. But when they move into like meeting an orchestra, that's not the vibe they're getting. They're not getting the storytelling. They're not getting the sense of wonder and I think mostly it's a lot of the language that we use. So if they come across like exceptional, exquisite, beautiful, it's all very sort of quality, again, defining words. So we're talking a lot about how great quality it is. And for new audiences, great quality sort of equals something that they should know is great quality, but they don't know if it's great quality. So really they end up feeling like classical music is difficult to enter, and you can't attend a concert unless you know something. And that's the vibe we give off in our brands, and not everyone, but I mean, a lot of orchestras have severe images. They have like stoic images with a lot of like nice clothing, and we look very professional. And most audiences today, if you want to meet them where they are, they're casual people, just normal people. And is there room for me? That's the big question when they meet an orchestra. Is that a place where I would fit in? And often the answer is, I don't know. So that's sort of the beginning of the journey, and that's a very big barrier. You can solve this with brand thinking.
Is the question, by the way, I don't know, which I think is a very human sort of way to look at things. So it's a new experience, like, I don't know. Or is it, I don't know, but I think maybe not? Because I do feel that maybe a bit of the latter. Because you said as well that if they go for the first time to a concert, they sit in the back row close to the exit, which is partly human, but it's also already kind of setting up for spotting any sort of confirmation of what they believe and be like, yeah. Is that something you've seen in the research?
I mean, when we interview people, it's like a two-step thing. There's the, oh no, I don't fit in here when I enter the lobby and there's only old people who in nice clothes and I'm wearing my sneakers. Am I allowed to wear sneakers? And then there's the brand meeting, because there's not a lot of audiences on pictures in classical music. We don't actually see what kind of people attend these concerts. So even if you have like casual audiences, you can see it in the meeting with the pictures and the brand. And I think the answer to that question is yes, they feel like I would probably be too immature or too wrong or too young or too... Maybe they have this sense in our brand that there are rules. And if you can't follow them, you shouldn't be there. I'm testing brand pictures right now to see what kind of pictures. And one of the things that we see is like pictures with smiles do really well. Surprise.
So strange.
Yes. Why would they like smiles? So like just like little things like opening up and be more welcoming in your brand. Just like there's room for everyone. In Denmark, we have some of the orchestras have like a quiz online. So on the website, they have, if you're new, and then if you're new, you press the I'm new button and you will go to a quiz. And you can say, oh, I would like some sad music or I would like some dramatic music. And it will pick something for you from the program. So even the difficulties of choosing is sort of solved from you. And a little sort of disclaimer of you can come as you are and it's okay. And we have maybe some conventions about clapping and we can share them with you before you go so you know what you're expecting. And new audiences want to prepare. So give me a Spotify playlist or give me something so that I know that when I enter the concert hall, I've sort of researched just a little bit. Co-audiences want that too. They love anything they can get before the concert. They're like our beautiful nerds, our loyalists. They just want more. Mm-hmm. So it won't be a clash to give new audiences more. It will help both audiences.
And can we touch upon those rules a little bit? Because say some of them are afraid they don't understand the rules. Maybe they're clapping and they're not supposed to clap, etc., etc. Is that something that is actually in the minds of the first-time goers, or are there quite a few sort of unwritten rules in classical music that are sort of not as obvious or standard as people might think?
I think that, our research is in Denmark and it's been confirmed. Most of our research has been like, it's everywhere. It's the same thing everywhere. But there are like conventions about class that we don't have as much in Denmark. And in our research, there's not much knowledge about diversity. So how does people from Turkey or anyone else see it when they come into the concert hall? But I think the rules sometimes feel... The things that they notice the most is the clapping, because I've had new audiences say to me like, "Are you kidding? Can't I clap?" I like, but this was beautiful. Do you expect me to just like sit with a stone face and receive the music instead of just, oh my God, you were so great. Even if we want it or not, the audience reference frame for understanding concerts is pop concerts, rock concerts. And those concerts are a celebration of music. And somehow they aren't allowed to celebrate in the room. And I think that's the biggest sort of feeling of, we talk about retention too, whether they will come back. And that feeling of you're not allowed to celebrate is harsh for them. And also this rules about like contact. We won't introduce the music from stage because you're supposed to know what we're playing. And I've had new audience describe it to me like the orchestra is a train. It will go with or without me. So the doors are closing. You just have to jump on and just hope it's the right train. And that's the feeling that they get when there's no introduction. So I have no idea what this music is. What am I supposed to listen? How am I supposed to feel about this music? And that's very discouraging. We can help them in very little ways. It's not that difficult to help them feel welcome. Just like bring the open arms. That's the only thing to help them solve this sort of feeling of rules. Like, yeah, maybe we have a couple of rules, but like, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. And we want you to be here. We just attended a concert last night after I gave a lecture.
Yep. I was looking at all the dynamics. I was like, ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, of no introductions. You aren't allowed to clap between numbers. And we will, like, in silence, rearrange ourselves after each number. And you're just supposed to watch as we sort of shift somewhere else.
And also, I found something new because I was probably hyper-focused on all these elements. Because you always get these booklets. It's kind of weird, but super distracting. Because at some point, I'm just trying to follow, and I'm going to read the book, and I'm kind of distracted, and I have my mind easily wanders. So I end up reading a whole thing about how they have their head office in Louvain, and I'm like, why am I reading this at this moment in the concert? But they gave it to me, and there's no other concert. I've never seen you go to a rock concert and they give you like sort of a
reading material.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing too. New audiences are like struggling with program. They were like, well, you don't really, before the concert, you're going to talk together because you're there with a person, and we're going to be excited and talk together. And you don't read the program. And then the music starts and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea what's going on. Maybe I should read some of this. And then it's too late because you are not in the music. You're already taken out of the music. And like some orchestras do this by having like an hour-long pre-talk, which I think is wonderful, and I think a lot of core audiences love that as well. But we don't have to do much from stage. It's really just kickstarting their imagination and say, okay, close your eyes. This music is supposed to take you up in the air. It's a piece about air. So just kind of bring that feeling of flying if you can. Just close your eyes, imagine that. That's all you have to say. That's like, I was like 10 seconds of talk. Mm-hmm. And you've given them a frame of understanding the music that will change their loyalty to you and their relationship to the music. So I think we can do a lot with very small changes. And I mean, a lot of orchestras are doing introductions and all these things, but a lot aren't. And maybe the ones that are doing introductions can pick up some of the other audience data and start working with that. And please ask your audience how they feel. Ask them if they enjoyed the music, if they enjoyed a selection of music that you made, if it gave them the expectation that they wanted, if they are coming back. Just ask them some questions, and they want to answer, because right when they leave the concert, even for the first timers and also the ones who didn't attend, they were elated. You know, they come out of the concert, oh my God. Woo! And they don't come back because they don't know how to buy the next ticket, because they still don't understand what they're getting from the next composer. And we do a lot of composer talk when we sell our concerts. but they won't know how to choose. So I'm going to be really commercial. Just Netflix it. If you enjoyed this concert, we have a similar concert in 3 months. You would enjoy that. And don't be afraid to do that on stage, or have people greet the audience as they exit the concert and talk to them then and say, like, we have a whole program for families and things like that. So I think being more interested in what your audiences want and engaging and asking them, and don't take it too much to heart when they come with that criticism or things that you could do better, because it's a way to accommodate them. And I have a lot of people say to me, but the core audience, they don't like it when we make like a thematic title. They just want the composer. And they're very loud, and they write angry emails to me about how I shouldn't change the way that we do programming. But they still come. The core audiences will come if you change these things too. They come 15, 12 times. They're not going to change that. But the new audiences aren't coming. So let the old audiences be a little bit loud and upset that things are changing. But get those new audiences. It's okay. You won't lose your core audiences. It's just
Take a little bit of a risk.
Yeah.
Try something.
Yeah.
Always say the moment you got critics, it means you're doing something right. If you're trying to speak to everyone, you're basically speaking to no one. And if you're speaking to the same people all the time, you're also kind of speaking to no one.
Yeah, and I think that's what the core audiences feel, is that you are speaking to someone else other than them.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. It's a good thing that you aren't only addressing core audiences. And I mean, we have the research online if anyone wants to read it. So the English, there's an English version of first-time audience research if people want to read about it.
Yeah, but where can they find that? Maybe
we have it on our website. I think RasmussenNordic.dk/English if you're English. So that's free to read. And then we obviously created all these tools and questions because, like, you do also work with brand and work a lot with trying to change the things. And sometimes as a sector, we kind of feel like we need it in a particular language to have it addressed the way that we do things. And the tools that we built from this project was made to be fit into the process that we already have. And maybe just that one extra question of what would the audience need from this concert, or maybe just asking what kind of pillars should we have in our brand so that we have more than one, and quality is one of them. And how do we diversify? Because a brand can be one thing, but if you have you can have little pillars in it, I think. But I'm not sure how you worked with the orchestras and audiences about these things.
Do you feel that your research has changed a few minds? Did you see some things being different? And also, do you observe that there is a wider trend that classical music venues and opera houses and concert buildings are actually changing the way they look?
In Denmark right now, the new trend is changing our brands, because they all sort of had that epiphany of saying, well, we don't have a conscious audience brand. We have a brand that's about us and who we are, but we don't have a brand that's about audience experience. And that's the thing in Denmark right now. It's almost all of the orchestras that we're working with are trying to figure out how can we angle so that we're classical music and something else. And I had this wonderful conversation after the tools were created with one of the leaders of one of the ensembles, who he was one of the people who he needed a little time to sit on this data and see what can it do. And he looked at me and he said, I think I learned something. And it was just a wonderful moment of if this person who really needed time to think and it was like a year and a half into the project, it took a year and a half to get to that point for some of them. If they can if they can shift and say, okay, I think maybe it's not everything that I want from this data, but maybe I can learn something from it. I think that's good. And we see a lot of change in Denmark right now. They're really working hard to do different. And it's not easy. I mean, I think there's like 7 tools in our book, and you can implement like more than one tool, maximum 3 tools every 6 months. So if there's like 30 tools, it's going to take a while to get through all the barriers and change everything. So change won't happen overnight, and you need to get your organization on board. You're going to have musicians who are upset, and you're going to have musicians who feel like, oh my God, we're commercializing and all these things. So that's a very real and valid concern, and you have to address that and get everyone on board with these kind of things as much as you can if you want to change things. But I think we have a lot of people out there who is very visionary about audience development, want to do these things, and they meet a lot of resistance in our world because of this idea of quality and art that we have that somehow doesn't align with doing what audiences want. But I had one of my ensembles say to me, well, if the audience isn't there, then what's the point of playing? I mean, we're just playing for ourselves.
And I do always believe in sell them what they want, give them what they need. So you can sell them a wonderful experience and then give them the great quality that if you really believe it's that great, why can you not give them that based on what they expected?
Yeah. I think it's sort of a no thing to still give audiences what they want. But I think data helps in that conversation. Just saying like, you know what? If we make something for the kind of people who like new things, classical music feels new to most new people, new audiences, by the way.
I mean, that's a good thing about this. There's a whole unexplored new audience for classical music.
There is, and they I mean, young people feel like classical music is experimental. Mm-hmm. It's just when they come into the concert hall that they feel like it isn't experimental.
You're like, exactly.
Yeah. So the framing of it is a barrier for them.
Yeah. If people want to know more about what you do, or want to find you, or want to maybe get your consultancy, or how did they do that? Where did they find you besides the website?
I think the website is a good place to start if you just want to explore some of the things that we've done. We have a couple of free publications on there and some knowledge. And then we have the toolbook on Amazon, Get More Audiences. Clear and simple.
Nice.
Yeah, for orchestras and ensembles. And then you can always find me on LinkedIn if you want to. I love questions and people, they have all sort of questions for me. And a lot of them I've heard before, but sometimes I get surprised. And I love to talk about just like, because a lot of people are frustrated, let's be honest. They're frustrated in the organization, in the classical music world. And I want to help them not feel so frustrated. But first I will frustrate them with data, and then I will help them feel better afterwards.
And I think we talked about this a little bit. I do think that, not necessarily to sell your book to more people, but the book itself or the toolkits are useful for even beyond classical music, right? For every sort of cultural and organizational element that feels like lacking audiences at the moment.
Yeah, I'm working with a jazz orchestra right now, and they have like the hosting tools and data tools and the storytelling tools and the programming tools. So they're using the same things. It's just in the orchestra. It will say orchestra in the book if what you're supposed to do. But I think we presented it to young people yesterday and said, like, if you want to be an entrepreneur in music, this is a good like base tool to create a concert and make sure that audiences know about it and all of these things. So,
as always, the very last question: what is the power of music?
I think I could give a very like academic, audience researchy kind of answer, but I think for me personally, it's transportation, transformation transportation. I think it will shift where you were a moment before to some other place, situation in your life, in your mind, in your body, in your And I think sometimes when we talk about art, music is art, we forget like that very core feeling of music changing us as we step into it. And that's the human feeling of how does it change me? How does it transport me? I think that's the beauty of music for me. And I think most people use it that way. Like they put on music to, oh, I'm sad. Let's change the vibe. Or I'm feeling happy. Let's enhance the vibe. So transportation for me, that's a really dull answer. Transportation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. If you want more information about JM or you would like to get involved, visit www.jmi.net. At JMI, we are on a mission to make the world more musical. That's why we created Mubazar, a digital platform that helps us manage all our musical activities across 80 countries worldwide, connecting musicians with opportunities to grow both personally and professionally. If you are a music professional looking for a better way to manage and promote your music activities, check out Mubazar. Created for music organizers, by music organizers, Mubazar allows you to run music competitions, workshops, camps, auditions, masterclasses, awards, events, and much more. Mubazar offers custom application forms, payments for your activities, jury tools, translations, analytics, and more. Mubazar is fast becoming the best place for musicians to find and apply for music opportunities online, and you can sign up today for a free organizer account by going to www.mubazar.com, registering, and then requesting to upgrade to an organizer on the right-hand menu. For more info, don't hesitate to get in touch via support@mubazar.com. It would mean a lot to us if you could give us 1 minute of your time and rate and review the podcast. In case you have any suggestions or would like to be one of our next guests, feel free to reach out to us through the JMI socials.